Hey, BBN, it's time for another episode of Bleav in Kentucky on the Bleav Podcast Network. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review the #1 podcast network for professionals, alongside the 96 champ, the NBA vet, 00, also leading in the NCAA tournament scoring stats. His name is all through that as we look through March Madness right now. I'm talking about Tony Delk. My name is Vinny Hardy. What's up, TD?
Man, I'm happy to be here. Another day, brother. Getting ready for these semifinal games at night. You know what I'm saying? So it should be another exciting night of college basketball as the season winds down.
For sure. And we got a special guest on here with us. Knew I had to get him on. My man, I got TD, we got TB, my man Terry Brown. We've been hosting Cats Talk Wednesday for going on 7 years. Find us on Anchor now. Every Wednesday we drop a show. So TV, man, what's up? Glad to have you on here with me, TD.
And I had to do this in honor of what I'm doing here. This is a 26-year-old shirt right here. So
oh man.
Gotta celebrate.
Hey, when TB put up, I'm like, hold on, man. Like that shirt is old. You know what I'm saying? Like when I say old, who can even think of it? Who can go back in their archives, or not even archives, like in your clothes, and be like, man, I got something that's 20 years old that look as white as that. Because normally, the leather's been faded off. I mean, the shirt would be a whole nother color. But man, you taking good care of it. Hey man, you probably take good care of your clothes too, man. That speaks volume.
I only wear it during the tournament. This is when I'm watching Kentucky during the tournament. This is when I bring it on.
Well, so. I tell you one thing, you didn't have. Well, it's good you put it on there because if it wasn't for me being on this phone or us going into April for the Final Four, man, that shirt would be another year old.
Another year old, yes, sir.
So I'm gonna hop right into it because I want to know, what did you think about? I know you got a chance to watch the Cats a lot this year. Just how the season ended.
For me, how the season ended. This team, we've all been on teams. Obviously, you've been at a team at a higher level. Sometimes you get together in a group and it just doesn't work.
Right.
And, I don't hold anybody personally responsible. I just think it's one of those situations where the pieces, while pretty good, just didn't come together for a whole. They just didn't play cohesive. As I've said on our show, I would rather just the team be bad than give me flashes of good, flashes of bad, flashes of everything in between.
Right.
But it was just a big tease. You kept thinking, oh, they'll turn the corner,
right.
3-game win streak, then a 3-game losing streak. And so it was just frustrating.
I think we all were thinking the same thing because, even when I was doing SEC radio, when they were playing against Mississippi State, and I'm like, okay, we down, and finally we got a chance to get back in the game. So it really gave me, not to say I thought we was going to win the tournament. I never thought that at any point in time, because I felt like there was 4 or 5 teams that were better than us. But it gave me, I was like, okay, cool, we beat Mississippi State. And then I thought about it, I was like, we got to play Alabama next. So why am I going to get my hopes up to beat Mississippi State, who I know we're better than? Even watching Mississippi State, and Adu had the game of his life. I mean, I've never seen that Adu. He had one good half, and then we made an adjustment, and he went back to being who we thought he was, which was not a good player. But I thought if they won, I was like, okay, maybe we'll give Alabama, a nice game. But like you said, why would you want to give us that false hope to think that we thought that all season that y'all was going to turn the corner, but it never happened, And like I said, it seemed like the chemistry wasn't there. And some of that, you got to contribute that to COVID and us not having a preseason. And even as we watch a lot of these teams, when you look at a Baylor who was right there with Gonzaga until that COVID situation happened, they had 3 weeks off. And, it finally took them, after coming back, about 2 or 3 weeks really to get back to the form where they were at before. They had to postpone the season for a few weeks. But it's so interesting watching Kentucky play and seeing who's going to come back. That's Vinny and I had that conversation. We've been talking about that. Who is going to come back?
who knows, right?
I know who should come. I know who should come back. Don't get me started, but you know, we can't stop someone from fulfilling their dreams at the end of the day. If that's something you want to do, and whether, you know, we want to see you stay to help out the program and you know, to get better, you have to make decisions best for you and your family. And it's always a tough decision because, you know, you want to try to make everybody happy. You know, you want to make hopefully I can make Coach Cal happy. Hopefully I can make my family happy. You know, hopefully I can make my friends happy. You know, so it's a lot more pressure than I think most people even understand. You know, when a 18, 19-year-old kid got to make a grown-up decision to stay in school or to go make money, you know, it's tough. It's easier being on the outside saying what you should and, you know, what your son should do or what I think is right. But that kid and his family got to have that sit down and that discussion amongst each other.
And of the latest, I guess Jacob Toppin said he was coming back. The big news, I guess, is who's coming in. The Kellen Grady kid from Davidson has transferred to Kentucky. 6'5" player, averaged 17 points a game all 4 years at Davidson. TB, I know you. TB famously drove to Boise to cover the Cats in that tournament when they played Davidson in Buffalo. So I know you saw Grady. I don't know if you were specifically looking at him at that time, TB, but you saw him play against.
Yeah, that was the toughest game to watch, Tony, because we drove from Kentucky to Boise. I know. We got hit in a snowstorm in Utah and didn't get to Boise until the media shuttle was loading up to go to the arena.
Wow.
And so I'm watching that game that was close in the second half. And I'm like, if they lose this game, I got to drive back home.
Right. And that's a long drive.
Yeah. That'd be a sad drive. But it looks like Cal is getting his roster together through different means.
Yeah.
You know, it's like everything is cyclical. What happened when we were in school, how, you know, Coach Patino constructed his roster when you were playing, it's different than what we have to do in 2021.
Right.
And now with the transfer market being wide open, that's where you got to go and you got to pluck guys and you got to put them together in a shorter amount of time.
Do you like the transfer portal? Do you like that?
Yeah, I think it gives the players a little bit more freedom. Like coaches can get up and go and do things. I think it's good for the players, but it's one of those things you have to use it judiciously, as I use an English word for you there, Vinny. You know, again, everything that we were used to in the 80s and the 90s, it just gets constricted down, you know, because again, I played basketball on a much lower level, but it takes some time to get familiar with people, and trying to do it at Kentucky under those bright lights, it's a challenge.
Right. Yeah, it's you know, I think it's, as I see it, just there's so many kids transferring right now. So it's, you know, I've never seen it at this alarming rate that, you know, kids. But you know, I'm gonna tell you where, to me, it starts AAU. It starts AAU and starts with high school. So as an AAU kid, let's say you start 7th grade, when you're playing on either multiple teams or you're not playing, or let's say you're playing, you don't like your team, you go to another team. So kids get used to playing at different places when things don't work out. There is no fighting through it or being mental, have some mental toughness and say, well, you know what? The guy in front of me is pretty good. Let me wait my turn, or I got to keep competing and beat him out and try to earn minutes that way. To me, it's the easy way out of a situation that you could wait your turn, improve and get better, be developed. And also it's a transition from high school to college. And it takes time to get used to the collegiate game. And that's something else, you know, even what we were talking about earlier about our young freshmen, is that those guys they still had high school bodies, high school mindset. And we're playing college basketball. And these kids didn't get the preseason. So even the preseason of 3 or 4 months would have helped probably take some of the burden and pain off of them as they started the regular season. But they didn't get that. They just jumped right into college basketball. And it wasn't as easy as I think they thought it was going to be.
Now we talked on, you know, various different podcasts, and you talked about your freshman season, and you talked at the end of the year. thought about transferring. You said, well, it don't matter. I really just got to get in the gym and get better, no matter whether I transfer or not. You evaluated yourself, and you said, I gotta get better. Had there been a transfer portal back then, would you have hopped in that portal, or would you have still decided to say, well, let me just go to the lab and get better?
That's a tough one, man, because when you look at the teams that were recruiting you, that still have a lot of interest in you, and it wasn't like my game just dropped off in 6 to 7 months from being a McDonald's All-American, Tennessee leading scorer. So there would have been a lot of teams coming after me, and wanted to use my services. But what really helped me was having Billy Donovan. Billy Donovan, with me being his prize recruit, is that he kept me in the gym. He kept my mind occupied, because a lot of times, with basketball players, football, baseball players, we have a lot of time. And in that time, a lot of bad things have happened. I don't want to talk about my quarterback in Houston. You got too much time, and you on that phone, and people coming by your house, and you be like, man, when you on that field, or you practice your game, it keeps you away from some distraction that can easily be there. But having Billy Donovan just constantly say, hey man, let's go to the gym, let's work on your ball hand, let's work on your shooting, your opportunity is gonna come. I need you to be ready, stay in shape. So he was encouraging me all along through the process. And that's what I think when these parents when their kids are being recruited, you have to really get to know the assistant coaches, because those are the ones that you probably gonna spend more time with than the head coach. And if you have a great relationship with that assistant coach, like I did with Billy Donovan, it would have been I would have disappointed him, because I was more connected and closer to him than I was Coach Pitino at the time. Now over years, Coach was there, and he stayed, for my whole tenure, and then of course Billy left and took a job at Marshall. But I got to know Coach a little bit better. But Billy was the main reason why I didn't hop into a transfer portal back then. I just felt like, dude, I got to grow up and mature. And a lot of kids don't do it because the parents do not hold those kids accountable.
And that's for sure true. TB, I know, before we get off here, I know you had some questions for TD. We started off talking about 96. You threw some questions at me before, and I just thought to myself, I'm just going to get TB on here and let him ask TD himself. So I know,
Well, I heard of Mr. Delk before he even stepped on foot on Lexington's campus. My mother is from Cordova, Tennessee.
Oh yeah, that's close by.
So in Collierville and everything like that.
That's my area, man.
Yeah, so I had a lot of cousins and stuff. When news that you signed, I went down to visit, like, oh, y'all getting a good one. He can fill up buckets. They were singing your praises even before I got a chance to see you play. So I was telling my mom, I was talking to you today. She said, well, tell homeboy I said hello. So from Cordova, Tennessee, we say hello.
Hey man, tell mom I appreciate that. That is my neck of the woods, man. You know what? You know who's from there? I don't know if you remember Nikki McCray.
Mm-hmm.
Played in Tennessee. I think Nikki might have been she might have won a gold medal. I think she did. I don't know where she's at right now, but we became pretty good friends because she played at Collierville High School, and I got to know her a little bit. Of course, she played at Tennessee, and I was a Vols fan, Lady Vols fan, because of her. And then of course I went on to start liking Tamika, Shamika. They had so many good girls, and then they were like UConn was a few years ago. UConn is funny too. UConn, that question call last night, but UConn they took over where Pat Summitt left off. Gino took it to a whole nother level, and but going back to, like I said, just being in Tennessee, we had so many good girls, but the Lady Vols was like probably I want to say our biggest team in Tennessee, because no one had won a national championship and still hasn't. If you look at Vanderbilt, Memphis State, TSU, Austin Peay, we go down the line with all the Tennessee schools, but they were the only ones that at the time, and I think UT won their national championship in football in 1997, I think. But other than that, man, Tennessee Lady Vols, they were big in the state of Tennessee, all the way down to West Tennessee.
Yeah, and we still say Memphis State where I'm from. So
you know what? I called it. You know what's funny too, because I was talking to yesterday, a good friend of mine, and I was referring to it was Memphis State when I was being recruited because Penny was. It's funny. Penny was my host, so I'm watching University of Memphis play the other night, and of course, you know, Penny, you know, they went NIT, and I was like, man, you know, happy for Penny because Penny and I played together in the with the Phoenix Suns, and Penny first cousin LaMarcus Golden, who was my backcourt AAU teammate, we played 2 years of AAU ball together. So I got to know Penny then and went and watched him play high school ball. But just to see what he has done there, you know, of course they would have loved to have been in the NCAA tournament. And if you see what Houston's doing, they gave Houston 2 dog fights, but you know, they were the number one. I think Memphis was the number one defensive team in the country, I heard. So it lets you know he's definitely locked in. You know, Penny and just the city of Memphis, but just that whole dynamic of what Memphis basketball means to the city is crazy. And when you have good girls and good guys, normally everyone wants to go to University of Memphis. It's still hard for me to say University of Memphis. I'm like, Memphis State, man. Y'all Memphis State.
Yeah, that's where my mom went. It was Memphis State way back when. She remembers Larry Finch and those teams. Those are her buddies right there now.
Yeah. So, but it's funny because, you know, Larry, you know, Memphis was my first visit. Then I went to Arkansas, and assistant coach there was Mike Anderson. Mike Anderson, Nolan Richardson, then of course, you know, Kentucky, Billy Donovan, and Coach P. And I had 2 more visits. I had Georgia Tech was going to be my 4th visit, and then UT, Wade Houston was there. So that would have been my 5th visit. You only get 5 visits. And after I got back from Midnight Madness, man, I was, you know, it's so funny that got back Monday morning. So I was telling Billy, I'm like, listen, I want to sign in the spring. So they had 5 scholarships, and they kind of put a gun in my head. It was like, well, I can't guarantee we're gonna have a scholarship. Then I'm like, dude, I'm one of the best players in the country, and you telling me you're not gonna save a scholarship for me to sign like when I want to sign? Long story short, I signed that day. So it went on, kind of got it over with, but you know, it was refreshing because it took the pressure off of me. And I think my mom, because I had my parents were old school, you know, and for the longest, my mom, she didn't have call waiting. So these people call. So, you know, when your mom be on the phone talking to one of her homegirls, her friend, that call might last 3 or 4 hours, you know. So they were like, listen. So they finally got through after about 3 or 4 hours, just calling like, yo, your line stays busy. So I had to talk, my brother and I had to talk my mom into getting call waiting. And she hated it, let me tell you. Because every time she got on the phone, she heard that beep sounds, you know. So, and we had one of those phones where you got to push the little button down, and then the person clicks over. And so then my mom she would click both of them off, so she would hang up on them. She's like hung up on a friend, hung up on a coach. She's like, I hate this damn call waiting. So, but it was so funny that when I signed, she was happy. Like she couldn't have been happier because all the phone calls stopped. You know what I'm saying? All the letters stopped coming because I had boxes of letters. Like when you become one of the top recruits in the country, you probably getting 15 to 20 letters every day. Right. I mean, mailboxes full. They send them to the high school. They send them to my mom. So we have all these boxes of like letters. Billy Dunham was probably sending me 4 or 5 letters a week. And imagine what those letters are now. Those letters are text messages throughout the day. Hey, I'm just checking on you. Hey, you know what? I'm going to be at your game. You know, so constantly sending text messages. So I think a lot of it it's so funny to see how kids are being recruited now to how I was recruited like 25, 30 years ago. It's crazy.
I don't want to fast forward. I don't want to dwell on a loss, but we've got to fast forward to, and TB was talking about the other day, that SEC championship game in '96 against Mississippi State. And I'm just gonna leave it, you know, kick it over to UTB because you was having questions about it. And Coach P was on Karen Mills' show Sunday, and he kind of said what you thought, TV.
The conspiracy theory among a lot of folks is Coach P called off the Dogs in the 96 SEC tournament final to get you guys ready for the big tournament. That's the conspiracy theory.
I'm going to tell you what happened, right before that game. Antoine had two really good games. He had a good game Friday night, Saturday night. So, he was thinking about himself. He's like, man, I'm about to get this MVP, So I'm like, dude. So we kind of got into an argument. Like a few of us got into an argument because he took it upon himself to think about an individual accolade, and we were trying to win a championship. So long story short was Coach bitched his ass. He was like, you're not playing the second half. And we ended up losing. And, Dante Jones had the game of his life. You know what I'm saying? Like there was a couple of plays where we were supposed to switch out on him, and we just got caught up on a couple of screens. And he had, just this incredible game. But we had blasted Mississippi State early in the season. We beat them by 20 in Starkville, because if you go back, they beat us my junior season, 95. They beat us on Valentine's Day. So we hadn't forgot about that. Like the guys that were still there. And we only had 2 losses in my 4 years at Kentucky. One was to Arkansas when we were number 1 in the country. We were up at halftime and we were celebrating. They came out and smacked us the second half. And Mississippi State, we lost to them on, it was our Valentine's Day. So, we hadn't forgotten about that. We was like, okay, cool. We're going to see y'all again. You know what I'm saying? We're going to see y'all at y'all place. So we couldn't wait to go down there. I think we might have 20-piece their ass. And so they had it in for us. We met them in the SEC championship game. But also, like I said, Dante had just an unbelievable game. I didn't play well, and I never really played well in the SEC tournament. And I think it was because, I always need a day of rest. So we played Friday. I wasn't going to give you the same performance on Saturday. And then Sunday, I was on fume, nothing left. Like, I'm just out there, you know what I'm saying? But that's when I always did well in NCAA tournament games. If you go back and look at, from my sophomore year all the way until we won it, I always had really good the next day games because I needed that time to rest. And when you got to play game, I was done. I had nothing left. But going back to 96 SEC championship game was that Antoine was feeling himself. He really was trying to get that MVP award. And, coaches was like, hey, before you get that award, we can lose this game. And that's exactly what happened.
This is I was going to try to find the quote. Coach P was on Cameron Mills' show. We had Cameron on a few weeks ago. And this Coach P said, I really want to lose that game. I didn't obviously lose on purpose. But like you said, I benched Antoine Walker, and he didn't do anything that wrong. He said something like, I don't think it was a bad shot, so I took him out and I benched him. I think if we left him in, we probably would have won. I did want to get a loss going into the NCAA tournament, not intentionally. If it happened as it did happen, I was very, very happy about it. So he kind of, which we know, Coach tell the media different stuff than he can tell y'all.
Yeah.
He's saying that he was cool with y'all taking a loss going right into the tournament when, kind of refocused before you have to win 6 straight. So
I mean, you know what? And this is how I look at all NCAA tournament games. And we've seen teams get hot at the right time, like UCLA is hot right now and had lost 4 games going into the NCAA tournament. But you got to look at teams who can win multiple games, like teams that can win 8, 9, 10 games in a row. Because not to say you can't win it if you go 3, 4 games in a row, but when you can win 6 straight games in a row and you've done it. We just got to win 6 games in a row, guys. We won 20. We won 27 in a row. So you telling me we can't win 6 more games in a row? That's all we got to do? You know how hard it was to win 27 games in a row? Yeah. And you look at what Gonzaga is doing right now, and I'm not going to even look and say, well, they played in the WCC, which is not a great conference. Their best game probably was against, and then conference was against BYU, and BYU lost their first game. So that doesn't hold true to make you like one of the greatest teams that ever walked the planet of this earth. I just don't see that. And when I look at the teams you face, like even when you beat, let's say Iowa, they got knocked out. So our case is the two teams we lost to both made it to the Final Four, and both had really good players. They had pros on their team. Marcus Camby, I was telling Vinny, I still thought I should have got Player of the Year, but he got it. And then you look at Mississippi State. Mississippi State, Dante Jones, Eric Dampier had a good team. I think they had one more guy that might have came off that team. So, and then Syracuse, John Wallace.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are that good and that dominant, and these teams that you face, and they supposed to be giving you a hard time, you're going to see those teams. You should be able to see those teams again if they're really that good. So really not to discredit what Gonzaga's done. It's still hard to be, undefeated team this far in the season. But also you got to look back at their conference, who they played. What if they were in the ACC, the Big Ten, the SEC? Would they have lost the game this year? Even in the Pac-12. I mean, you want to face some of them teams on the road. And, you look at like a USC. USC got some pros. UCLA might have some pros. These teams that have pro. Baylor. What if they had faced Baylor early in the season and they had beaten Baylor? And let's say Baylor get back to the championship game similar to us and UMass. It's going to be a different game the second time around. We didn't forget y'all beat us. You know what I'm saying? We got if all our players are healthy, your players are healthy, nobody's hurt. I'll do. It's only popping. We didn't forget losing. So it's extra motivation because that year we wanted to play UMass again. You know what I'm saying? Like Mississippi State, it was tailor-made for us to revenge both our losses, to be honest with you. And that's how we saw it. We saw it, okay, we're going to beat Mississippi State, we're going to beat UMass, and then we're going to kick Mississippi State ass in the championship game. That was our plan. So now you revenge both losses, and both losses we lost by 10 points to both teams. So I'm like, okay, we'll come back. But what I'm saying is, to say this is, the two teams that beat us were right there to face us. And one of them, we faced that one team. But when you say the greatest teams, like whoever gave your best game, you should see them again if they were that good.
In my metric, I that's the point I always talk about to people is the teams you lost to got on this T-shirt here.
And when the T-shirt went up, just think about what you just said. How many times can them teams that you lost to, they're right there with you the last weekend of the collegiate season? Wow. I mean, no other team really can say that okay, that team, and one of those teams came from our conference. And if you look back, let me tell you something about Syracuse. Syracuse, somebody hit a last second shot. I think it might have been John Wallace, Elite Eight game against Georgia. So if that shot doesn't go in, we will have us, Georgia, and Mississippi State, 3 representatives of the SEC. Yeah. And Georgia was a good team then too, so once again, to go through a conference, a really good conference, because I look at today's game and conferences like, every conference is different. Like, we gave the Big 12, not the Big 12, but the Big 10 too much credit. Nine teams in, and we only got one team remaining. The Pac-12, we didn't give enough respect to, So it lets you know just the parity amongst the collegiate teams.
We mentioned Baylor too. I was going to switch to them because I didn't catch all of their game last night, but they controlled it pretty much the whole way against Arkansas. But every time Arkansas would kind of get it to that short corner where you think something good would happen, Baylor was trapping it so hard, and it was alternate possessions, it was tie-ups, it was jump balls. Could Muss have done something differently? What did he make an adjustment? Every time I looked up, they were getting trapped there. So did he try to change anything from what you saw, or?
You know what? I actually like that, to be honest with you. I'm thinking about it now with some of my kids. Is that as soon as they drive baseline, just trap it, and make them make a decision. Because when you have grown men that don't know what the hell to do, like I'm like Moody, you're supposed to be a pro. You didn't look like a pro last night. You know what I'm saying? Like, but also you got to put a player. I was telling a good friend of mine, you got to run some post-up plays for guards, man, just sometime to get us, close to the basket. That's where Coach Pitino was really good at. With me being 6'1", I knew how to post, whether it was 6'4", 6. It really, I don't care about the height of somebody. If you know how to post and know the position where you need to get to, you use your power, use your strength, have some moves. He allowed me to do that. So I didn't always stay on the perimeter. But when you got to stay on the perimeter, you missing shots, you're not getting to the foul line, you're never gonna have a rhythm. But if you get me close to the basket, some 2 to 4 feet now, I make that shot, it would get me going. So even as they were driving baseline, and this is what I'm saying about college coaches too, like we give too many college coaches, we use the term great loosely. Great should not be given to a coach that hadn't won more than one championship, period. He had been to multiple Final Fours, okay? Like I was telling Vinny, I think we might have talked, like Shaka Smart, he ain't no great coach. What has he done? He had all the resources, all the talent. I mean, let's be honest here. That's just one I'm thinking of. And I told Vinny, I say, what separates, like what makes Bill Self, let me see, Izzo, Boeheim, they have the same amount of championships as Kevin Ollie. And Kevin Ollie don't have a job right now. Now, some of it's his fault. Don't get me wrong, but but at the end of the day, they all got one championship. So we gonna say, I never heard anybody say Kevin Ollie is a great coach. So we use the term great loosely, where it's not you're a good coach, because you can't make adjustments, and some of your adjustments got to be, okay, I got to put my player in a different position for him to be successful. I got to call some different plays. Like that's not working. Like, I got to, instead of me trapping, like we might need to go under on this guy, different coverages. Okay, how do I get my best player involved? Okay, you got 4 fouls, man. We got to protect you. I got to tell you that. But also, you got to be smart enough to know if you got 4 fouls, you can't drive in out of control. Notate, JD notating, like, soon as he started driving, I was like, oh man, charge. Mm-hmm. Now your second best player, offensive, probably your third best is Justin Smith. He's been playing really well, but your second or third, however you want to look at it, best player is out the game now, and he don't play the last 12, 14 minutes of the game. So either you got to be smart enough to take him out the game, because obviously he's not smart enough to, with 4 fouls, he just go running in there like, okay, like the weak side don't see you coming. We just gonna get out of your way and let you go shoot a layup. No, we're gonna slide over outside this restricted area, and your ass gonna charge. And that's exactly what happened. I'm like, oh my God, man. But you can't play every game behind. That's another thing. Like, your guys are ready to play the first 5 minutes of the game. Every game, like, come on, dude. Eventually that snake was gonna bite you in your butt. And that's what we saw points. Yeah.
Because that's what happened with Kentucky against Kansas State a couple years ago. Remember that, Vinny? Kansas State got up like 12-2, and then for the rest of the game, Kentucky's trying to catch those points and just never could get over that hump. Mm-hmm. You've got to come out ready to play.
That happened to us too. It happened to us against Marquette in '94, and we really didn't know a lot about. We watched film and we didn't know a lot about them. Like, if we'd have won, we'd have played Duke, and I think Duke would have been the Sweet 16 game in Knoxville. That's where that site was, that regional site was. And so we actually came out of the locker room. Like, we went back in the locker room. We came out the locker room with about 4 or 5 minutes. So coach was, man, he had this like a Schindler list of game plan. Like, man, he must have went over everything. When I tell you coaches can overload your brain with shit, man, to start the game, it is crazy. But he gave us so much stuff. I'm like, man, I can't remember. So trying to remember what we had the day before, and then we got a new list of stuff. And what usually happens is now, you're thinking about all the stuff's on the board. So we actually come out of the locker room with probably, I want to say, 3 to 4 minutes to warm up. Now, the other team is in a full warm-up, full sweat. So, and we started pressing. So right away, our legs wasn't ready yet. So we went down like maybe 12 to 15 points. But I think what happened was that they guard, when I tell you they guard just annihilated our press, man, he dissected our press like I've never seen a guard before. And we never took the press off. So we make no adjustments then, then we made our run, you're going to make your 8-0, but we trailed the whole game. And when you trail the whole game against a good team, and I wouldn't say they was, matter of fact, they lost the next game. You know what I'm saying? But they beat us. And I was like, man, we lost to a team we should have beat. And But you learn from that lesson. I think we learned from 95 because the hardest game to play is the Elite Eight game. And here's to make the Elite Eight game hard. When you're playing tonight, so 2 teams already in, when you have the last game, you are the last team, and both of y'all know who already in, the other 3 teams. We already know who the other 3 teams. So now you got to set back, and it's a late game too. So it's hard when your body is conditioned to playing at 7 o'clock. We got to play the last game at like 9:15, 9:20. So you know how this is, TB. Your routine is messed up, messed up. So you got to figure out. So when I went overseas for that 1 year, whenever we had a EuroLeague game and it was at 9 o'clock, the whole week we practiced at 9 o'clock. So our body was conditioned to practice at 9. And I don't know what these college coaches do, but you got to have a different routine if you got that last game. And I don't think most kids, and I think that's how Arkansas was, is that Arkansas, the late game, them dudes weren't ready yet. And by the time they turned it on, it was too late.
Yeah, we see that all the time when teams come out flat that late game, and hey, if you chase an 8 to 10 point lead the whole game, that's tough. It's just tough to overcome.
Yeah.
The other, I don't know if it's surprising news. We talked about it. TBU and I talked about it on Cast Talk Wednesday. TDU and I talked about it. We saw, DePaul has an opening. Dwayne Peavy hollers at KP. It looks like KP is heading to DePaul, and KP decides to stay with the Knicks. So are y'all surprised that he stayed? Is it just a contract, TD? Is that the only thing?
I think from what I've been hearing, there was a contract. I think there was a pretty hefty buyout that I don't think DePaul was willing to pay. And and it makes sense, just to, you got to pay that much for someone who hasn't coached yet, and although Peavy's been there, he ain't been there long enough to be like, okay, I trust him. He should be, because you should be able to hire who you want to hire. You're in a position to do that. But they got to say, well, is this money we about to pay for this buyout, is it worth it? And I'm like, yeah, but KP got to want it, because if KP really wanted it, it could happen at the end of the day. He has to make decisions, because it's still, although you're under contract, you have a buyout. Are they willing to pay that buyout? And seemed like they might have been ready to pay that buyout. But I think he was happy with where he's at. Sometimes you've been in college for so long, a change of scenery doesn't hurt. And when you're in the Big Apple, Big Apple or Lexington, Shy, the Big Apple it's a tough place to live, but you only got to be there for 5, 6, 7 months, and wherever you want to go and spend your summertime, and then you don't have to recruit anymore, because now you got to think about what KP got to do. KP got to come, he got to get a staff, he got to find a place to live, he got to recruit kids, he got to see if the kids that are there, if they're good enough, if you want to keep them kids, he got to learn, he got to hop in the transfer portal, just maybe to get a couple of those kids. And you think about it, man, you'd be like, I've been doing this for like the last 10, 11, 12 years, man. I don't know if I want to recruit no kids no more. Now that recruiting job is not it's not what you do anymore. Now you just assistant coach. The scouts go out and do what you were doing as an assistant coach, and the GM and the president, they make the decision on the personnel. So to me, it's less stress. Then you have more games, of course, but you really don't have to go out there, and because college recruiting is a 365-day job. And I remember my college coach telling me, he said, Tony, he said, really, technically you might have 1 week off, maybe. But that week, somebody's probably recruiting the kids you really want. So do you really have a week off? I was like, nah. And then he told me this too. He said, recruit some kids that's going to help you keep your job. So I was like, oh, for real? And the kids you might be recruiting, think about this, I'm in New Mexico State, so the kids I'm recruiting I'm going to Duke, North Carolina, Kansas. So I was out recruiting them though. I'm like, shit, I don't know what they're gonna do. They might come, they might not come. But I'm recruiting the kids I think can keep my job. So don't say, I'm like, hey coach, you told me to go out and recruit kids. I think if you don't come here, I did everything I could. We might not have the budget. He might not like our facility, but I'm out trying to recruit these dudes, but also getting back to just to the tournament, you got to have guys that are tournament ready, guys that can get you buckets and stop runs. And when you start looking at these teams, when the team is making a 6-0, 8-0 run, like, Moody is still a young player. Like Herb Jones played probably not a great game against UCLA. Like he didn't score until like late into the game. Like he had, I think at one point in time he had like one. I'm like, dude, how you gonna be SEC Player of the Year, SEC Defense Player of the Year? I'm like, how you only had 1 point?
Yeah.
Dude, seriously, against UCLA, who was not like what I said, Memphis was not the number one defensive team in the country. They're a good team, but you can't get more than 1 point at halftime, and you're supposed to be the best player in our conference. Like we voted, well, I didn't vote him. They voted him the best player in the conference, and all we can get from you is 1 point at halftime. Come on, man.
Yeah. Flipping back to our era, TB and TD, Kentucky used to play Indiana back, when we was all teenagers and young adults. Mike Woodson to Indiana. What do we think about that?
I actually played for Woody. Hey, TB, hey, you can answer that one, man. You can give us your thoughts on that one.
When we talk about building a program, that kind of thing, what I've always said is you can survive one bad hire, right? You can survive a Billy G, let's say, right? But it's the second guy. You can't miss on the second guy because then your program loses all that momentum, right?
Right.
And that's where Indiana is. Indiana's got a whole generation of kids that don't remember how great Indiana was. That's the challenge for Mike Woodson is to borrow from Notre Dame. He's got to wake up those echoes and be like, as good as we were in the 80s and 90s, we can do that again. But people don't know. When Rick Pitino came to Kentucky, yes, it was a bad situation, but people still remembered Kentucky being good, right? People still remember Final Fours and that kind of thing.
Right.
But in Indiana, it's just such a different situation. And plus, I just think there's a lot of people in Indiana that still want Bob Knight. Like they have not let go of Bob Knight.
Right.
And so, no, not everybody's on the same page. And that's what, so I wish him well because I want Indiana to be good. I mean, they're a rival. I want them to be good because I want to beat them when they're good. I think that's always a good
I agree.
thing. But is he going to have enough people on board to help him with what he needs to do?
He's 63 years old, coming in to coach college for the first time, signed a 6-year contract. So, I mean, if he stays the length of that, he's 69. And then they're in the same position of probably looking to get a new coach again, even if he does well. He's 70 years old. Is he going to stay the length of that contract? And you talk about KP not wanting to recruit and all that. Mike Woodson never recruited because he's been in the NBA. I didn't even know he played for Indiana, to be honest. I didn't even know he played. I didn't even know he played for the Hoosiers. I was like, oh wow, he's a ex-Hoosier. Yeah. I had no idea.
Yeah, he's actually from Indiana. He's from Minneapolis, so yeah. I didn't even know he played. Well, it's I can tell Mike, man, it's good money, man. 6 years mean you got 6 years of guaranteed money. I don't care when they fire you. When I get to 69, I'd have made a lot of money. And how many jobs can you say at 60? Think about this, you 63 and you get a multi-million-dollar job for 6 years. It's like, man, it's going to, like I said, he got to go out and do recruiting and get him a coaching staff, and he can't bring no other old coaches with him because they're going to be like, man, we old, man. We ain't going on the road. Hey, dude, we've been
you see Larry Brown? So they said like Larry Brown's going to be involved.
Oh, and God.
I said Larry Brown coaching the ABA. Larry Brown coaching the ABA.
Hey, you know what? It's funny because Larry Brown, man, come on. Man, what is Larry Brown going to do, man? Y'all are old, man. Like, come on, man. It's like, y'all going to be ready to ready for bed by 6 or 7 o'clock, man. I'm like, dude, come on, man. That's when practice starts. Y'all dudes. I don't know, man. Like Mike better go get us some young dudes. You better go with some dudes and some 20 and 30-year-old dudes. He's trying to bring Mike, he's trying to bring Larry Brown in and probably some more of his old friends. I'm like, no, dude. You better bring some young 30 and 40-year-old guys in. Because them old men like yourself, they're gonna be I'm telling you what they're gonna remind me of. They're gonna remind me of Sanford and Son. And with Grady, Skillet, Leroy, Fred. That's what they're gonna be, man. They're gonna be
Here's where Indiana.
They're gonna be Sanford and Son, man. They're gonna be like, hey, with them old jack, with them, what they have on them? They had on. I'm trying to think of one. It's one of the movies. Not one. It's one of the episodes where they have these so-called. They supposed to be partying, man. And before the party gets started, all of them are passed out.
They're asleep, yeah.
So you can imagine him with like 3 or 4 of his old friends, man. And I'm like, dude, y'all tired, man. Y'all can't be out on the road. No, when I just said 365 days, come on, man. But 6 years is 6 years. So hey, I hope Mike does well. And kind of get them back to relevancy, because right now they just, the fans and the people still thinking Indiana is kind of like one of the blue bloods. I'm like, no, they're not. They have no blood.
Here's where Indiana basketball is. They pay their football coach more than their basketball coach right now. Tom Allen makes $3.9 million a year. Mike Woodson just signed for $3 million per year. Football coach makes more than the basketball coach at Indiana. That's where their basketball is right now.
But $3 million is better than what you was making as an assistant coach. So
yeah,
that being an upgrade. Yeah. Or like, this is what I told somebody about Frank Vogel. I think at the time Ty Lue wanted more money with the Lakers. They was only going to offer him 3 years, and so he was like, "Nah, that's an insult. I've won a championship and I should be getting 5 years." So then they went and offered Frank Vogel the same. I might not say. Let me tell you about this. Frank Vogel went from making probably maybe $40,000-$50,000. He still might have had some from his buyout, or Orlando might have still been paying him. I said at $5 million, I said, so if your bank account go from 0 to $5 million, are you gonna start to get extra years when you ain't got nothing coming in? I said $5 million sounds really good to me. And right now, same thing with Mike Woodson, probably was making $400,000 or $500,000 with the Knicks. So you get a $2.6 million increase with 6 years guaranteed money. Man, he laughing all the way to the bank right now. He said, I got him. I got him. So they're not gonna be that good. We already know that, man. Dude, they're gonna be like, you know what? They're gonna be TB, they're gonna be just like what Vinny just said. They're gonna be like, you play where? And Mike had Mike was a nice NBA dude. He had a nice NBA career. It's almost like Junior Bridgman. Like, people look at Junior Bridgman for what he did, like what he's done now with the Wendy's and all this restaurant. Junior could play basketball, man. Go back and look at Junior's stats. Junior Bridgman could ball. That dude he had a real nice game. And people only talk about what Junior has done with this, with this Wendy's and all this investment. I'm like, but now Junior was a hooper, dude. Right. Don't forget that. Mike Woodson could hoop. Now these young dudes, because I don't know if they can go back that far and get footage, because that was in the 80s, man. These kids, when they see footage of me, they be like, yeah, man, dang, all right, at least my footage in color. I don't know what my footage might be in. I don't know.
But it looks all grainy. When you go
like,
back,
yeah, man.
It's not HD, like, it looks all grainy from our time.
Hey, people be like, hey, they look for stuff in high def. They can be like, man, this ain't in high def. Like, who recorded this? Like, it was actually 40 years ago. So it's gonna look a lot different 40 years ago than it does today. And these young kids they do not understand that. They're like, wow, it don't look the same. Like, no, it's 40 years ago. Do you understand?
TB and TD, I think both of y'all share something in common, because when we had Alan Cutler on, he was talking about how much you still get out and run, TD. TB is a runner too. So both of y'all get out and get y'all's run on. So I think that's a common thing y'all share.
Yeah, I started running right when the world went to crap with the COVID. I've been at it for a year, and I got right at 600 miles down.
Okay, wow.
I started off slow as all get out. That first mile, it took me about 17 minutes, and I stopped 3 times.
Good Lord.
But I said I'm gonna get back at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I've come to enjoy it.
I like it too. Every day is a different day. Just depending on how I feel when I get up in the morning. But I still can. Because I've also had 2 knee surgeries. I had a ruptured patellar tendon. I had tendonitis really bad. I had a meniscus tear. So I had a lot of stuff going on with my right knee. But it's still refreshing. It's the quickest way for me to get a sweat other than playing. And I don't want to play because I fear getting injured. And I'm sore after I play all the time because I'm 47 and I'm thinking I'm like 17 because I don't want to stretch. So I just think I can run out there like my 17-year-old mind is thinking like, hey man, let's go hoop. My body's like, no, dude, we're 47 years old, and I'm going to show you what 47 feels like.
Yeah.
And I have to be smart. So when I get on the treadmill, of course I stretch but I take my time, and it's straight ahead running. There ain't no slides, no jumping, because that's when you're gonna tear something. You know what I'm saying? Because in your mind, you're reacting. You still have great instincts. Like my instincts haven't changed. Like my instinct is still on point. But I pulled my hamstring. It was like 2 years ago, right? So it was a young kid. I'm like, man, I know I can get to the ball quicker than he can. Sure enough, I tried it. As soon as I fell, so one of my teammates, you're like, dude, what were you thinking? I said, you know what? I was thinking I was still young.
Yeah.
He said, but looking at you right now, he say, how do you feel? I say, I feel old. Because I need some help to get up off the floor. I'm like, man, yes, dude. So you have to listen to your body. Your mind, as we said, will play tricks on you to make you think you can do something. Your body will be like, I'm about to embarrass you right here. You about to get embarrassed in front of these people. Watch this. So I got to be smarter. So like you said, running, I enjoy doing it, and it's fun. I take a day. I run 3 or 4 days, and I take a day off, and I'll get back at it.
Last thing too, man. I gotta flip it to the Brooklyn Nets. They got Blake Griffin the other day. They just added LaMarcus Aldridge, TD, TB. Does this mean they're committed to playing zero defense at all? They're just gonna outscore everybody throughout the rest of the playoffs? Because they're not stopping anybody. So I had to get y'all's thoughts on that.
You got it, T.
I don't think I'm gonna play defense. I mean, if you can get up to the 140 range, it's gonna be like those 7 seconds or less Suns. We're gonna just put some points on the board. Yeah. Although the thing is, individually, I don't think that any of those players are bad defensive players. I just think they don't want to necessarily play defense. Because your man, Vinny, James Harden, he's balling. Yeah. Like he had a 30-point something triple-double the other day. So he's been playing at a high level. But they're adding all these guys, plus you're going to get Kevin Durant to come back. I mean, they're going to be tough to beat, but at some point you got to slow somebody down. So I don't know if the Nets will be able to do that. Yeah. As a Lakers fan, I hope not, but
Exactly.
But you know what's so crazy, man? I'm trying to figure out, like, this has been the longest I think anyone has been out with a hamstring pull. Like, KD's been out for he done missed like over 20 games, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was way before the All-Star break.
Yeah. I'm like, this is a little bit more serious than I thought it was. But and they have played better defense than I've seen that I thought they were going to play. But I still think they will, if KD comes back and add LaMarcus Aldridge, not the LaMarcus Aldridge that was an all-star 5, 6, 7 years ago. And Blake Griffin is a shell of himself, but he still is Blake Griffin. Everything depends on, of course, Kyrie and James. And, if KD comes back, at least 95%, it seemed like they just, here's the thing too. When James Harden is playing the way he's playing, there ain't no rush for KD to come back. Ain't nobody really tripping on KD right now, because they're winning games. And here's the thing with James. James is very capable and has been capable of carrying a team. So he's conditioned to do that. Now, when KD comes back, now what he struggled with in the playoff, there was nobody else to go to. Like, it was James or nothing. Yeah. Kyrie can go get you buckets. KD can get you buckets. LaMarcus Aldridge can still pick and pop. Blake Griffin's still Blake Griffin. You still gonna have to respect him for what he's done in the past. So there ain't no pressure shouldn't be no pressure on any of these dudes when it comes to scoring. Now, they do have to take interest in defense, which I think I've seen them play better defense. But it's still going to rely on just those three players being on the court. And are your 2 or 3 best players better than my 3 best players? That's what it's going to come down to.
That's it. We know we all get suited and booted, and TB, when he gets suited and booted, his bow tie game is strong, TD. And his sock game is strong.
Oh, bow tie Brown. You can call him
bow tie
Brown.
Yeah. Exactly.
I got my Kentucky bow tie that I always have.
Shoot, okay.
I'm ready to go.
I can't pull out the bow tie, but TB can. But when we top it off, TD, you gotta get that La Terrain watch, the compass, the Voyager, the Red Crest. You've designed the 25th anniversary national championship watch for '96. BBN, you pre-order that, you get a copy of Alan Cutler's Cut to the Chase. Dave and Ben are doing, look, just go to LaTerrain.com. It's crazy what they're doing with these watches, the bands, the selections, variety. If you haven't seen it, check them out on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And we're just happy that they're willing to sponsor the podcast. But LaTerrain.com, they're doing their thing.
Yeah, they've done a good job. So like I said, working on this 25th anniversary watch, and just trying to make sure we get it in the hands of the right people. But Dave and those guys, Ben, have done an excellent job of just different timepieces that they put out there, and real slick and cool, not expensive, great to have on your wrist when you out and about. Even if you're on a basketball court, football field, baseball field, most people want to tell time. So there you go. You got La Terrain. They do their job, and they get them out to you quickly too.
Absolutely. This has been a blast, fellas. We got a couple games tonight, like we talked about. Had to get you on TV, and always having fun. We'll do our thing tomorrow, like we do.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Final Four shirt in mint condition. Final Four shirt.
It is, man. Shoot, and we got to post the shirt, man. You know what I'm saying? Be like reminiscent. April 1st, put that shirt on, man. I'm gonna see if I can go back down here in the basement, find my shirt, and just throw it back on.
That's right. You done inspired us all, TB.
I appreciate y'all having me, man. I appreciate it.
No doubt.
For my man Terry Brown, the legend Tony Delk, this has been Hardy, been another episode of Bleav in Kentucky, brought to you by Bet Online. Everybody rate, review, subscribe to the podcast, and we'll catch y'all next week.
All right, brothers, y'all take care.
You do the same.
Okay.
Appreciate you. See you tomorrow, man. Tomorrow, see you.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, man.
All right.